Wholeness and balanced vibrations to everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Esoteric Radio. Today is Sunday, April the 15th, 2012, and we are speeding along. We have an action-packed show once again. Today's show is scheduled for an hour and a half, just in light of the information that's going to be coming forth and the application that you'll have an opportunity to do. So I'm just going to take a brief moment. There has to be some type of prelude to this show. And I think that prelude is going to be is that you have to understand that my position is simply one who is embarking on a mission to figure out what's going on here. I refuse, no matter if on a high level with lots of resources or on a low level with no resources, to just sit there and sink into my situation and forget about the bigger picture. So many people will set out and they ask themselves the question, what is the meaning to life? And now we even have people coming forth saying that they discovered the meaning of life. But somehow it still has to equal something that is vividly felt. And so the reason why we're here today is to get vivid results from our spiritual, mental, and physical experience. And that is what I am able to deliver to you. That is my duty, I feel as my obligation, in order for the energy that continuously flows through me to do that. And I just want to let everyone know that the major thing about all of this is that when you really, really acquire something valuable and precious, be free with giving it, or else you will suffer the curse that is associated with abundance, meaning that if you let anything powerful, if you try to capture it and hold it, and don't allow it to go free, then it will bottle up and then explode in your face, and you will suffer the damage from it. So all I'm going to reveal today is the system of power that is in this earth. But it will be very easy for you to understand how individuals that did not obey the instructions that I just gave, which is about giving the information and the prosperity and the secrets for free, bottlenecked, and that explosion caused a ripple or a schism within their own aura, and they are reaping what they're sowing. But since we're all in a huge family that is so vast that those who just look with the simple eye, the two eyes and no third eye, they cannot see the complete connection within everything anymore. So they've taken their groups, their tribes, their cultures, and they've either taken them forward or backwards. And this creates the cause of time, where there's a piece, mainly 7 pieces with the 8th hidden piece that you must put together. You must understand certain number sequences, shapes, and things that actually equal you getting to the next level of your progress. So, before I continue, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check in the chat box. I'm going to ask, somebody already answered. They hear me loud and clear. So great, we can continue with this. So, of course, today's show is about soul migration. Where are the spirits going? And it's just very interesting to me why I keep figuring this stuff out. And it's very easy because it redundifies across the system. But why it seems so difficult for other people to figure it out. So maybe what you're here to do and what I'm here to do is to shed the light upon them once more. That this is what's happening and has always been happening, and we have an opportunity to build up our energy and cycle energy, or we can sit back and remain blind under the veils. So, here we go. Now, at sea level, now notice, everything is measured as far as the topography of the earth, how high things are. It's based on sea level. So, what you will notice is when you're at sea level, like right now, I'm here in an ocean area, and I have the opportunity to sometime go out and look into the ocean from the shore. And with third eye abilities, and we'll talk about third eye a lot in this conversation. With third eye abilities, you don't see the ocean as a wall. Basically, when all the colors start to blend in together and you can't see, you see the flatness for a certain period, but then after a very short period, you just see it all as a complete wall. It runs together. With the third eye, you can see almost to the next shore. That is what the third eye does. It separates the differentiations of the greens and the blues. It knows it's able to mesh into each and every single one of them in order to respond back to you with the entire layer. So what you see it as is an entire flat piece of water, but it's deep. Everyone knows the ocean is deep. I have now discovered that our subconscious on its physical level is located inside of the ocean in a location known as a menta, which just etymologically, because it has menta and mental in it, means a deeper state of mind, is where in most cases when the ka, or the astral double of the individual, their astral spirit, when it goes in the dream world, it goes into the menta. And these people on this planet that are in the know have been knowing about this for a long time because, ladies and gentlemen, the Illuminati is not an organization that began in the United States or in Britain with these Western cultures who are learning themselves. It began in the sands. It began in the place that we know as the Dubais, the Egypts, these areas, because these individuals understood more about the star systems and understood more about all this way before it was introduced to us by Macmillan. So if these people ever thought, and this is what happened, because you see a lot of the organizations within the United States begin to join these Eastern or Easter teachings, Shriners, etc., and then they had those teachings, and they thought that they were going to go and get those teachings, whether they were going to steal them, whether they want to trade for them or whatever. And then they were going to have those teachings, and they were going to embed those teachings within their own cultures, which is where the United States is and the Western cultures came from. And then somehow escape the grasp or control of those who had already been practicing in the knowledge. So this would be very similar to if someone's already taken off running before you. How are you going to catch up with them? This is very important to realize. So what ends up happening is our world as we know it is in the mind of other beings because we've chose to take secondary languages, secondary programs. These secondary languages, secondary programs don't allow us to take things serious enough, as we talked about. In English language, there's a maybe. In most ancient languages, there's no maybe, meaning there's no indecisive. There's only yes or no. This makes things real clear. This makes things happen real fast. There's no impedance. So this is why English at times becomes so cumbersome. It's a block. When you're trying to explain something to someone, somehow they take it the wrong way. They're all sensitive. It's because it's the way the words are slashing out. Like they are tumbling forward with hard edges. So we have to begin to understand how to pull this apart. So what you're looking at is there were individuals here under a Venusian cult known as the cult of the black snake. And this Venusian cult had the knowledge, which I am now understanding is just the knowledge of the universe. When it's in the hands of the individual, then that's when it begins to metamorphosize. So the knowledge itself is a body of knowledge. It's how the stars and how the stars and the universe and the energies and all of that and the plants and the conjunction with the animals and amoeba and all that, how that all really connects from a universal system that it becomes so simple. You can lay it over. It's become so universal, you can lay it over as a template over anything that you're experiencing and understand how to completely not only master it, but also how to turn it into your favor. So what we're looking at because this transcends on multiple levels. What we're looking at is actually the missing piece to our entire chakra system, if you want to give it that term. The entire activated human I see as very similar to a clock with many cogs. And most of them still intact. However, some of them, and mainly one of them, missing. And that's what we're calling the hidden. This is where, like I said, the number 13s, all these different things that mean hidden come in at. So what is hidden? Well, it's the ocean. Like I just posted the video on the involution, the first post in the blog. It's the ocean, which is only 3% of what we discovered has been discovered. The 3% of what we've been has been discovered of the ocean out of its whole 100%. This means that in places there are the highest mountain range or the highest natural pyramids still underwater. And then we're living in a society, because of the last holy war, that is telling us not to investigate such things. And this is what's drying us out, because we don't have the fertilization. Because everything to do with that ocean in the abyss is darkness. You need your own light. You could get lost in there. And this is why, I was talking to Nima the other day, the contemplation now of Earth being a star, because instead of a planet, as something that's emitting its own light, because we're here. And we have this light shining from us and even reflecting back into the sky. How does that look from a distance? Is NASA really sending us the correct photos of what Earth looks like? Last time I checked, anytime you use any type of microscope, telescopes, you have to lay over polarized filters and things of that nature to capture truly what you're looking at. You can't use the standard lenses from the cameras that are being used that they're sending us pictures back from. It's very similar to the difference between taking a picture with a normal camera versus taking a picture with a Kirlian camera. You can't see the auric field. Then the next thing they do is they send an auric field picture of Saturn and say, oh, they discovered the largest ring around Saturn, but now you can see it. Yes, because they put a filter on the camera. So we're never going to get a straight answer from NASA. The extraterrestrials have already been here, code name AWAS, code name AOSSIC. These are extraterrestrial gray entities. These are the ones they call the grays. These are the ones that they got the knowledge from about many things. I can't even limit what the knowledge they pulled out of this portal. Because Easter or Aster or Astar or Astart, where we get the word star and start, knowledge comes from the East. So when they got that knowledge, they went to look through the portals, meaning the tunnels of time. Because as we're going through right now in the future, right now, you're leaving a tube behind you. These individuals, through the Enochian works, understand how to travel back through those tubes in order to move things around in their own lives, which is the only thing you have control over. When you seek to control others' lives, you enter in principalities. It means you went to another level, so now you got to deal with what comes on that other level. So these principalities let us talk about, because with the ability of the third eye, you could see the entire spectrum, meaning that when you're out here in the jungle and you look, you could see that the trees, many of them actually have some type of serpentine thing going on. Even the pattern that goes through them is very similar to some of the snakes that we have on Earth. And then you can see anything that moves across your field. This is why I started to notice when you're in dense foliage, there are many different entities out there. But when you're in shallow foliage, meaning areas that don't have much trees and things, these areas are basically, quote unquote, policed. That extraterrestrials such as, let's say, Krishna don't come in those areas. Now, they are here though. This is where we've also goofed off a good 100 years by not admitting that if you walk into a temple in Angkor Wat with your third eye open, you'll see it fully populated with entities that still serve the deity that is sitting on the throne there. And it's because humanity has refused to accept these things, because like I said, after the Holy War, this is when the Cathars came with the sword the Catholics came with the sword. They were fighting against each other for the knowledge. Once these people started realizing there was knowledge of immortality, not just immortality, conscious immortality available, all of the people who were troubled by what they received, meaning that those who were in the highest positions of power were troubled because they were in these positions but did not know why they were there. Just like in this world right now, we have people that are doing magnificent things, especially in Hollywood, I guess. They don't even know why are they a star? Why do people gravitate toward them? Why them and not other people? Then, of course, jealous people looking on say, well, yes, anyone can do that. It's just because they had the endorsements. No. It's more than that. It's more than endorsements, because what that individual is capable of doing is still attracting souls that come from multiple experiences. So let's talk about those multiple experiences, the soul migration. What I realized is that we have also this relationship with what is adjacent to us, meaning what is next to us, below us, and next to us, above us. We have a relationship to, or used to have a relationship to at some point. And this allows us to basically triangulate. It gives us existence. So there's a lower self and a higher self. And everyone loves to talk about the higher self, and they love to talk about leaving the lower self. And then never realizing if the frequency that they're actually on equates to the lower self, then they're talking about leaving themselves. This is what the craziness that you have people going on in the mind, the madness, because they don't understand what this language actually even means. But now we're going to pull it apart today. So what you have going on is when the soul is going through multiple experiences, is going over the wheel of time, or the wheel of the zodiac, the 12 positions. It's going through its 12 animalistic characters. Now, you have to see charts, which we're going to put charts together to show how this maps out. But if you just have the bird, then you already have the serpent, because the bird is the evolutionary form of the serpent. And then if you have the serpent, then you already have the fish, because the serpent is the evolutionary form of the fish. So that's one category. That's one wheel, one mansion. Look at the word mansion. Man, Zion. Zion means projection. Man's projection. Okay? So in the house of many mansions, there's these 12 positions. And when we go throughout time and we live through these positions. Right now, it appears we're in the 11th position. This is why 1111 is all over the place. People are trying to still figure out what that's about. We're in the time of the twins. We're in the time of the two currents. Two currents running through our body. They have to confront one another. This is where extremes meet. Let's sit back and say, well, extremes do meet at some point. They have to. So we have a bunch of individuals that still don't realize what this is all about. So we have to enlighten them about this by showing them this. And this is what the activated human is really about. It's not about explaining this so eloquently. It's about showing it and allowing it to benefit this species. So, the path to the Innerverse. What are we talking about? Now, everyone talks about these spiritual paths that they're on. And we understand religions to be paths. They still are paths, no matter where they lead. I guess all roads lead to Rome, though. So, what happens is if you don't figure out the control point and neutralize it, you end up in a lifetime of pretty much avoiding your transmutation. You know the direction of your transmutation, but you know also going there means to be transmuted. And then at that point, you don't know what's going to happen next. Because that's what it means to be on another level. On another level, you don't know what's going on that level. That's why it's called another level. If you knew what was going on, that would be called the level that you're on. So, the next level always encases things that we may not know about. So, we had already thought about that a long time ago. And someone mapped it out. They said, you know what? We've discovered a universal pattern. That no longer, when going into undiscovered areas, we will be at a disadvantage. Because we have the key to how all things work. So thus, is with our speed, meaning that when the body is completely activated, the energy just keeps coursing through. With the speed, we can learn from time. So you can imagine when too many people get in on a project like that, then it ends up being very disastrous. And this is what you had in the United States, because in Germany, there was a collaboration with Ils in Israel. There was a collaboration to dig deeper into the knowledge than ever before by using organic subjects, because they realized that the extraterrestrials were not using inorganics. First of all, let's just take a stove in your kitchen. The stove doesn't know how to prepare the meal. It doesn't know how to go and get the food. It doesn't know how to do any of that. It's inorganic. Only thing it could do is generally serve one purpose. The organics, they know how to go and get the food, prepare the food, put it on the stove, etc. So the extraterrestrials were already using organic everything. This is what always kept mankind, especially in their greed and not seeing this, behind the extraterrestrials. So what we have this opportunity to do is to absorb all this, because 2012, man, we're going to finish this. Meaning, this is the end, people, of ignorance. Like, this is the end of the way we've been living. That's why people are like, oh, what is the end? The end is near. You're right. It is near. The end of the way you've been living. Your oppression. It's over. Even though you don't see it that way, it's because you're in oppression. Oppression fields are very dense. So, I want to take this moment to introduce Crystal on the line. We're going to definitely get to people's questions today. As you can see, I'm charged up. Like, I understand all of this. It's just going to be about how much time it takes to deliver it to you and to what format that I can deliver it to you in. Of course, we're going to be launching a lot of other things this year. We're going to be doing a lot with the movies, a lot with the graphics, so that we can show you how this works. We're going to put the charts. We're going to put the books. We're going to put the homeschool. We're going to put it all together. And then we're going to give humanity a real shot at this. Here's another thing. The trees has an extensive communication system. Now, many of us are not around trees a lot, but the trees, they're always in this with us because they're kind of counting on us to work this out, because they have already hinged themselves or anchored themselves to this. And that's why Earth is also referred to as a tree. She's into it. She's in for this. Like, there's no getting away from this for her. You see what I mean? So these trees, what they have is that they have a communication system that is organic. You can get more and more familiar with that organic communication system the more you work with the teachings of Kundalini. Your mind, body, and soul must be prepared for these things. This is now up to you. I will tell you that. Like, even within the past, what's kept most of this away from you is that life after life, these people have been able to keep a force up, a force that would make individuals that had this information and wanted to give it to people even attempt to self-terminate themselves before they do it. Sometimes they call it a Manchurian. He's set to terminate himself once he gets to a certain point in the knowledge. But they've encased all of the knowledge within to run the perfect experiment. You see, what's happening with us is in our immaturity, we're not calculating how there's other people who wanted to figure out the same thing we wanted to figure out, but they were far more aggressive at trying to get to it. And they generally started from nothing, which is easy to do when you have a lot of energy to start from nothing and accumulate everything that you need to keep pushing your mission across, whatever it may be. You see what I mean? So there has been a fire that has been removed from this current status of species that will allow them to be pushing into this even heavier than I am about figuring out what's going on here. And that fire, that peace, that key is linked in with the third eye. It's the 8th chakra. I'll produce all the knowledge for everyone so they can look over it. I'll bring their scientific versions. I'll bring their orthodox versions. I'll bring it in every single version because it's a universal system. This 8. That's why you keep seeing these people with these 8-pointed stars. Like, me personally, I don't know, maybe I'm a little paranoid, but when I start seeing these royalty people with these badges and stuff on them, I start to get a little paranoid. Like, who are these people, man? Why are they wearing that kind of badge? And it's because they have the knowledge of the 8th octave, because where we're divided within our mothers. Mother Russia, la, 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 la. Africa. Afrique. You see, so we're divided within our mothers. But the 7 mothers, Pleiades, have one head mother because all of them are still women. Women all connect to women. So while we're sitting back here like can't figure it out, it's already been figured out. But this is why you get so close to the truth, but you keep having these conflicts because you're like, I don't understand how those people connect though. They're another refraction of the ray, which is androgynous. Elohim. Straight lines. This is how whatever goes on earth runs under the circumference of Earth and its counterparts, especially Venus. Venus is like the diagnostics for all the entities that live here. If they go through the Venus womb, who's Aphrodite, she's black, go through that womb in order to come into Earth. They come down as flowers, some of their physical correspondences. You see the geometry behind the flowers, the pentagram, the papaya, the apple. It goes on and on and on when you start to look in nature. So this is how the geometry of the grand creators was redundified mainly through curved lines into our reality. And this is why they don't cease in introducing to you straight line knowledge. Like that Star of David and that Merkaba with those straight lines around it. Because even for it not to have a curve on each of those edges means that you don't receive the knowledge the way that the knowledge is supposed to be received. It's been hacked. So this hack is a direct break. Now we build a bridge. This is where the completion of the knowledge came from, is because each piece must be put together in your psyche. If you're a psychonaut, if you're a person that travels throughout the psyche of conscious mental magic, as they call it, you have to think things piece by piece. So if I say to you, castle, you see an image of the castle. Psychonaut sees the bridge, the gate. It sees it piece by piece because it knows it has to deal with each piece. So what is the bridge to the next connection? It's Kundalini. It's Earth. It's Mother. It's the portal. We came in that way, we go out that way. You have to talk to Mother. And now, I was also on the phone with Nima, some very profound things we were talking about. I was telling him that I discovered finally where my greatest confusion was about how words are put together. If a word is said backwards, I used to still concur, as we talk about in the Code of the Matrix, that it means the same thing. And many people argued, especially when they had to confront God and dog. So what happened is that I found out that when a word is backwards, it's either the inner or the outer version, the internal version or the external version. So it just so happens that God, who's God, the Gothic God, is a dog when it comes into the external world. And they are from the land of Canaan. They are Canaanites. They are Sirius, Big Five, in Canis Major. Okay? So that's because they told you in the ancient books they put the guard dog over Earth. to make sure those going and coming, Cerberus, they gave it the name, a dog snake, because it had more than one head. I believe Cerberus is the Vatican, because according to the deeper etymological books, Can is a dog spirit. So this is when, as Canaan, CNN, the people reporting to your news, this is what we're talking about. You can play it over again, hear it again, and it'll make perfect sense to you. It's already been recorded. It's in the archive. What we're talking about is getting people in the know about this kind of information so they can just guide their ship through it. When I confronted Cerberus, it was so big, I flew right between its legs. See, the only thing that they can do is make you look for it externally. But it's really internal. So no matter where you go, you'll never find it if you're looking for it externally. But when you look inside, your frequency goes to a level where they cannot touch you. I think that was Obi-Wan Kenobi said, or one of those guys said, to destroy me would only be to unleash a force greater than they ever imagined. Exactly. And adapting these things within your conscious and subconscious mind is what you need to do. Now, if it turns out that we don't need all of this, and someone glorious comes and saves things, then at least we'll have it in the knapsack. But what I'm telling you is, from what I've discovered, what happens with this energy is that it's so powerful that individuals who attempt to attain it fast, like a genie in the bottle, it eradicates them. It's way too powerful for that. See? So it has to have a plan. It has to have an entire trajectory. Because when you take off with it, wherever you're trajected, that's where you're going to slam into if it doesn't happen to be clear. And this is why most of this information is coming out, and we have all these procedures now to teach people more about spirituality and consciousness, whoever it's from. It's to get you to straighten out your tube so that when you go through it, there's nothing there blocking you. When you get into high levels of energy, there's nothing there blocking you, because you know why? You'll never get into high levels of energy. Except for something that I believe is going to happen within the next year and a half, which is, it's like an Indiana Jones movie. There's a wall behind you that's pushing you forward. It's so solid you can't stop it. And this is the universe. And it's going to activate humans anyway, because it brings about Judgment Day, where there must be a purification through fire, but a fire that does not burn, an unquenchable fire. It must remove all the negativity. So if you reside in a negative zone, which is an illusion, remember, positivity powers negativity. Negativity is nothing by itself. You cannot pull negative $5 out of the bank. Okay, so negativity, if you are a negative individual, you will not think you exist. Let's just put it like that. Most of your stuff will be located there of who you think you are. Then once it gets wiped, because it's only an illusion, if you're mainly in there, you get wiped. And you begin another one, it happens in a flash, a twinkling of an eye. And this is what I'm also producing to you in the documents, which I'm only really beginning. What you're looking at is my rough notes on Sevan's theory of involution versus Darwin's theory of evolution. Yes, I think that there's been some mistakes because we keep looking at the body and the soul and rolling them together. Like we were talking about, it's the bridge and then the gate, okay? So the body has another kind of perpetual use. It's mass. It came from Ma'at. It's going back to Ma'at. While it's living, it gets the experience of living with soul. Soul is filling it up. And so that when the soul finally makes its departure, because the matter can no longer hold the soul's energy force, then it returns along with the essence of the soul into the dirt and sprouts. Sprout stuff that's also conscious. Meanwhile, the soul moves on, saw it all as a flash. Didn't even have the agonizing pain of what the body was experiencing before it decided to keel over, unless it happened in a flash, also for the body. And that's why most really powerful, spiritual people carrying a lot of current go out in a flash. There's no prolonging for the next transmutation into the next existence to continuously kill these planets, which are nothing but plants that we all must tend and keep. We have a responsibility. Be you Nephilim, Venusian, Saturnalian, Crowleyan, Ians. Okay? Be you Ian. Figure out exactly what you must do here in order to keep this perfection happening. Because you see, this perfection is starting to wobble in many areas of the world, but you can go and fix that. And I'm giving you the tools to do that. As these papers continue, what we will be explaining is the direct path to what you seek. You are to understand that you have a family. You have people that you can talk to, you can email, you can get this information. It's not virtual in the sense of its real life application to what you're dealing with in this world. It's real time. We are in the know. We are speeding with an unbreakable shape into the information and lighting resplendent into what is happening in the darker reaches of our subconscious, which must be raised itself. We cannot leave this, what we call the lower self. You're going to leave lower self alone. Lower self is down there like a baby, only doing what you're telling it to do. So we have to be responsible as humans for what we birth, because we're resplendent, hyperdimensional beings. Now, we just get that memo, unfortunately. And don't not allow this karma, which clearly exists, of continuously dusting over our old lives and not repairing things, find itself as our destruction and erasing of who we are, because we have yet to truly become something. So let's do this. We got a couple callers here. Got about 51 more minutes left in the call, and I pretty much said everything I need to say for today as far as that, so I can definitely get into some question answering. I have the line open with Crystal. Crystal, how is it going out in Canada?
Hello. How are you today? It's a fantastic sunny day here in Kelowna. No complaints. I'm just really fantastic. I've been enjoying your opening discoveries, and it's coming across very, very clear. I just wanted to kind of thank you on behalf of everyone, listening, for all the tireless efforts that you do and for mapping out the hyperdimensional Innerverse, so to speak. So that's really great. If you want, we can get into some questions. Like you said, I don't know if you're kind of finished bringing forth everything you wanted to today, but we can for sure bring up some questions.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Okay, one that kind of relates here by Sheree. He said, do you see that as we ascend in frequency, the world, personalities, and experiences around us shift to match that frequency? Or do you believe we change the world around us by our frequency? Is there a difference? I have heard both versions. What does your perception now let you see? Well, I can add a little bit to that by saying, I think we've been learning here through our progress that we must internally first change things about ourselves before we can see it on the external world. Like if we're looking outside of ourselves to kind of define ourselves or kind of move forward, a lot of the time there's no answers there. So like Sevan has been saying, we must go inside to kind of figure out what those answers are, and then we can kind of expand on them from there. So, Sevan, I'm sure you have, a little bit more you can add to that.
Oh, sure. I mean, the world is not going to wait for us, and it's just one of those things, especially with the higher systems of energy. You could get into that now. It's your decision. But as far as the overall world, what people do that experience and really, really get into understanding how to apply that of what they learn and what they find in this adventure of theirs back into our reality. They always better our reality. But bettering our reality is a continuous thing. This is also where it's been maybe some of the failures of the older minds, is thinking they were going to implement something and that was going to be the end-all, finish-all. Like, I'm going to bring in electricity and then everything's going to be great. We're going to have power, there's going to be lights, and that's it. Then humanity will forever never have a problem. That's not, true. What happens is that at each point, through each incarnation, we become responsible from whatever level that we're on. There's times where we see an Earth from way up there, because we have still correspondence here. We always have correspondence, anchors or tunnels, biorhythms that we can connect to that are here, no matter how far we go out into our expanse. So this becomes something for us to where we could really, really help people the most by really, really cleaning this up. Like, do it for my friend is, again, one of the most powerful things, because you're not really attempting to figure this out just for yourself. This seems to give you access to the rest of the picture. Selfish is not the way that the universe moves. Selfish bottlenecks the energy. So we seem selfish people. We wouldn't even know the word selfish if there wasn't selfish people on Earth, okay? So there are some very selfish people here, and because of that selfishness, they bottleneck the energy, and now it's exploding on them. These are the riots that you see. These are the fire. Anytime you see fiery emotions, it's because there was energy that got pent up that should not have been pent up, whether it's someone holding millions of dollars in a room somewhere to someone holding the avatar in a prison cell. You see what I mean? People need to really get my drift on what's happening here, because you don't have to any longer accept any of the darkness that is dissipating rapidly. Anytime you're in sometimes when you go into the deeper states of consciousness, it's so dark down there, meaning that when you're in there, you kind of can't see anything but your inside, who you are. And you get so deep into it, you start to forget that you're even identified inside of a body, even on a planet that has a sun. But when you open up your eyes, at that point, all the darkness dissipates. And that means that we were installed, for better lack of words, with something that is still the solution to our situation. We now tap into it. When we tap into it, it catches like the human orgone. For the scientifics, the 100th monkey syndrome begins to cause a genetic anomaly, as they love to call it, because it's not supposed to happen. Anything that's not supposed to happen is an anomaly, so they don't expect this to happen, so it'll be an anomaly. And it'll cause a genetic situation within the species. And this is what we're looking at, so I'm sure that answers the question enough.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. We also had someone want to know kind of how base operations were going in Costa Rica, and they were kind of just wondering, what are the prerequisites to going down there. And it says that, my soul is telling me that me and my environment and the acquaintances, they're not conducive with my quest, and to fully activate, and I need to be more effective person or production member of the solutions our planet needs from us. That's by Taflon. So yeah, it's funny that you bring that up, Taflon, because, just recently, I guess it was about a week and a half ago, I had made up a basic application for relocation for the resistance, because there was a couple people here in Kelowna who were looking to come down to Costa Rica to visit Sevan at Ground Zero down there. And so I sent Sevan to have a look at it, and it's just, a basic questionnaire that's got about 7 questions on it that just, lets us know kind of where you're at, what your plan is. If you were to go to Costa Rica, would you be staying just temporarily, kind of an in-and-out thing, or, would you want to have a more semi-permanent or a permanent situation? So just getting some of those initial questions figured out, as well as finances too. I mean, this is real life. We have to figure out when we go down there that, we're just not going with a stick with a bandana on our back. We have to be prepared for that kind of thing. And I know too, for visa reasons, that I think you said, Sevan, it was 3 months that you could stay in Costa Rica at any given time, and then you had to go to next door to Nicaragua or Panama just for the day and then come back. That's right.
Exactly. The whole thing in line here is because I just keep climbing to the top of the ladder and to figure out how to really solve all the situations that people keep presenting. I believe relocation services is in order, so that's really what we're working on now, is getting a person integrated if they want to come to Costa Rica. And this is something that, again, it's only a few of us back here, because what we do get a lot, and I'll just say it directly, is we get people that want to help, but they don't really have certain capabilities that allow them to spearhead what needs to be done, like a step-by-step process of setting up certain things, because, of course, you have to go back into the matrix. And so we jack in, and then we go into the matrix and get certifications and things that are necessary to build things, and that stuff takes time. And so what we've done now is that we have one anchor. I'm going to talk to the gentleman again probably next week, and actually everyone's familiar with the gentleman, is Carlos with Discover Reality, and see how he feels about that whole thing, because there are things that we know, because we've been able to apply the knowledge that we have to many different fields. There are things that we know that can allow people to generate income while they're in this country, and it's projects that I've even thought about embarking on, but of course I'm involved full-fledged within what I do on the spiritual plane most of the time, so it has to be allotted for that. So this is the piece by piece of where you really have to build something, but the main thing is who you start building with. They have to be really ready to put their all into it and really ready to beat the learning curve, meaning that sometimes when you're jumping right into a field that you've never been into before, if you have just a good level of common sense, you could go right into play. But if you start to get afraid that maybe you won't succeed and all of these different things, which is still all a part of our spiritual growth, then there becomes a problem. So we have to iron out that. I'm just speaking about it openly so that we can talk about the step-by-step process of starting something that really lasts. Because, of course, we've seen many communities in the past fail because, the idea of just putting everyone on one level of grounds and that are all on different spiritual levels and then expecting them to get along all the time is it's really silly. So what happens is that, planets clash. So we really want to get people incorporated from a level of being able to get them into positions while allowing them to have their own life. So even after they, let's say, do resistance, as far as from the resistance to corporation, as it's called, to doing that versus also still going out there and getting their spiritual enlightenment of what the area has to offer here. So I think all in all, this is definitely something that the higher levels of help and assistance that we've been receiving want to see happen and have already been making the proper, they've been doing everything that, from what I see and what I experience and what I've been given and just the opportunities that I have and what I know, they've been doing everything they can to make this happen. So the only thing that separates us between that is time, and time is cut down by device. Now, device means device, meaning it takes away monotonous things that you have to do that actually take up your time but still have to be done. Meaning that I function as a device for many individuals that are leaping tall leaps and bounds over spiritual knowledge, rhetoric, philosophy, etc., by just getting right to the point of here's what's going on here, whether you could take it or not. If it takes you 10 lifetimes, you'll still figure it out. It's something that's always been going on Earth, and it never changes because it's been tried and tested, and they like how it's working. So you can climb up the ladder and benefit from it by understanding how it works, or you can sit back here and become extinct until you pop out the other side of your consciousness, not knowing that you actually were extinct before and you're back again for another run. So to me, what we've learned now in our society is to be able to say that and move on with it. This is what I think what the Western culture contributed. Generally, someone would sit a lifetime in meditation of what I just said. But now we've got to the point, because we're still being pushed to go faster and faster, that seems to be something the universe wants to happen, we can have this kind of conversation. This is the other thing. Much of this stuff, even English is a gift and a curse. What it does is it pretty much takes away you having a God all the time, because the world needed a break from these separate entities that kept calling themselves gods that were not really guiding people in the right direction. So English's God basically is so weak, for better lack of words, it only can stop you in certain areas, versus ancient gods, they can encompass you in their region. And to break their region takes, you have to have know-how. And let me explain that, because that's the other part of this conversation. what we have to also consider is that these gods, such as the ones that live in Angkor Wat in Cambodia, are binded into that region. They cannot come out of there because there's something like a men in black that the moment that those deities move out of those regions, then they immediately neutralize them. So that's the ongoing war of principalities, okay? So, but what happens is that principalities always seek to expand their territory. And so when you look at the situation happening in Germany, and all those that were affiliated with that expanded their territory into the United States. So there was no interest of just going and conquering the world. That was impossible. Like, there are deities in other places that are immovable. That's why if you look in Terra Papers, they talk to you about the one that's mainly out there in Egypt, inside of the pyramids. It's immovable. It already built a system and a structure that allows it to be, it always has that region in that diamond, and it can do anything from there through its projection. As they said, it's sleep, but dreaming. And these entities are something very similar to those precogs that you saw synced in the goo in Minority Report. They have vast minds, very similar to large squids, like mother brain or something. And they can connect into all consciousness. But what you have is you can wake up. Notice how no matter how dark and crazy the dream get, you got slashed, killed, stabbed, shot, you flew over the universe, ran into the sun, got obliviated, you still wake up. What does this tell us? This means the Grand Creators also installed another component to where when you lose control of your dream world, meaning you're no longer lucid every night, then you can at least still wake up versus having to live continuously in a spiraling of your dream. So let me ask you this. What happens if you go into a dream and you don't wake up and it's a bad dream? People need to start thinking about that and wake themselves up from a bad dream if they feel like that's what they're having. That's the deepest knowledge that could ever be given to you here. Something is solo about the soul. It did come in by itself in retrospect. So it has this self-identification thing that it feels it must protect. It's its individuality. This means it still leaves it up to you to actually figure all this out and do all this. The only thing that's been presented to you now is you understand the individuals that are speaking with you understands every single thing about this. And that's what makes me remain here. Meaning that's what makes me be here talking to you, because I understand the reverse of the curse. See, many people want a lot of money, and there's a curse to that. Many people want no money. There's a curse to that. You see, what happens in the extremes is when you get all of what you say you want, which is probably what you call your maximum, there's a curse tied onto it. Because in your maximum field, when bottlenecking, will blow. So what happens is that if you look at what happens with people who do have a lot of resources, they're almost, if you look at the movie The Talented Mr. Ripley, they're almost to the point where they almost have no more feelings, and they hate that. So they hate money. But it's like following them around. It's creepy. It comes from the old grandfather or something. And then you have these other people who have no money, and they hate that. You see what I mean? So where we have to be fixed now, since we see these positions, is we have to understand, well, what keeps causing this? And it's because when something ceases to flow, it becomes stagnant. Then it dries out. How this manifests in your life is that if you do have something that at times is the most precious to you, you have to know who needs that more than you and make haste at getting it to them. It doesn't have to be money. You see what I mean? In fact, it turns around more when it simply comes from the heart. Because very few can even give money from the heart. When they give, they feel they give it from somewhere else. They think they give it from the mind. That's what they call the mental magic. It makes you think that just because you gave it from the mind, and that's what you were supposed to do. But did it come from the heart? All the individuals that we've been dealing with have given, with the resources that they've given it from their heart. And that's why also, for those who may not be multi-talented in different areas and things of that nature, it's not even about that. You've already given your presence, which is the most valuable thing. Because no reason for me to be here if you're not there. So that's that interconnectivity. Now, how we are to experience this in the reality now is we are to make it happen. This is what you want. You don't want anyone making it happen for you because it can be removed easy. I have a note on my Skype. It says, let me just read it real quick here. It just says, none of this is easily gained, so it cannot easily be taken away. So, but if it's easily gained, then it's easily taken away. This is how it works. So because you can see this with the body, you work out and you do real workout, core strength, you can stop working out for a year and still be strong. Versus if you do the blow up, let's say you do some steroids or do something of the genetics or whatever, and you blow up, and then you stop working out, it goes away immediately. You see? So we have a redundant system. We have to get more familiar with that system and start to apply to what we're experiencing, and then we have to do that for others. So we still have a little bit of time left in the call. What kind of questions we got?
Yeah, we certainly do. There's one in the chat box, the Esoteric Radio chat box. We should probably answer this one first. I don't know if you have anybody live.
Oh, yeah, I got like 4 people live. So I'm going to
cool.
take the one in the chat box, and then we're going to start taking questions online. If you want to call in, we have about 30 more minutes left in the show, so you know that's not a lot of time. You can call in at, let's see here, 347-996-5688. That's 347-996-5688. And then you can press 1, and we'll see the indicator, and then we can take your question live on air with Esoteric Radio, and we can get some of those questions answered, because trust me, I haven't even got out like 1/1000th of a percent of what I know now. So what's that next question?
We got to dig it out. Okay, so I like this one because it's related to lucid dreaming. Kevin Fair says, I find myself having more access to the astral realm, but I'm having trouble finding out where to go. How do I gain access to these places in an outer body experience?
100%. Intention is what controls the UFO. Remember, according to the myth, when they opened up the UFO, they found out, based on the equipment that was there, that the entity that was inside of it was controlling the ship with their mind. So once again, you see the external version of what goes on internally. You have to know where you're going, what you're doing before you get in there. And like when I was able to do lucid dreaming more professionally, I had specific things that I would go do. Like I would plan it out. So one day I would say, next time I get in there, I'm going to try to fly up to the first heaven. I'm going to try. Actually, the first time I said I'm going to try to fly up to heaven. I wasn't lucid until 2 days later, but I still remember it. And I tried to fly up, and I got all the way up, and I got out of Earth, and then I started going up higher, and then I stopped. I lost thrust. This was about 7 years ago. I had no more thrust. And then it felt weird because there was nothing to stand on. And then that's when I realized I had reached the first heaven. And then I also realized why they say these other beings, they reside on the third heaven, fourth heaven, and then there's the one where, you know, you have to be able to pass through, etc. So this is what you're talking about. So what you're looking at, though, is deeper and deeper into the subconscious, the ocean, the actual prime materia, the unmanifest of the entire situation. But it's also called the panuncia because it has the ability, because it can be molded into anything. The dream can be molded into anything. It has the ability to make you anything. So now the only limitation is your mind. And that's why there's so much, if you see spirituality is so rich, when you go to search for something, you find so many tales, you find so many stories, so many symbols, because it needs to be that rich in order to carry into your consciousness if you're looking at it from an external level. But what goes on internally, and this is why we do have options here in regards to our chakras and what they can allow us to feel and see, introduces you to other frameworks, basically. And this is what becomes, you begin to utilize those frameworks in order to begin to build your bridges to other states of consciousness, which you still always recognize as your own. The depth never sees anything out there as different than himself or herself. That's why they can keep going further, because eventually, if you were like that, you were always differentiating something outside of you, you would run into something that would terrify you fast, because we are terrified of our real potential. That's why we stay in this governed state. Most of the time when you get into a high vibration, the first thought that comes is, oh my goodness, I hope I don't die. I hope I don't kill myself. The heart tends to beat faster or differently. You can feel different things in your throat, etc. So there's this fear, I hope I don't die. Meaning, I hope I don't split into two.
Does that also happen with the ayahuasca?
No.
Seven? No?
No. The thing about the ayahuasca is because there's the purging going on. And another individual that I hold their judgment very, very close, made a really, really deep observation just recently here in Peru, which is that now what's happening is the ayahuasca is becoming something like a genie in a bottle also, where individuals are thinking they could just go down into Peru and take one of these ayahuasca journeys and they're going to have third eye and then everything's going to be fine after that. And then Peru appears to be responding with having individuals that are there that know tourists and people want to come in and actually have and take these journeys, and are just facilitating that and not even trained properly to facilitate that. Nor the tea probably can't be made correctly, because just like if you see in Ayurveda, the shaman must, or Tibet or Ayurvedist must put his essence inside of it in order for it actually to do what it's supposed to do. So if it's not the proper person, it's overrode. Just like if going to Egypt right now, there's many individuals that are there that'll tell you wild stories about Egypt and what's going on inside the pyramids, but that are just tour guides and know nothing more than the tales that they know that fascinate people most. So what am I saying? I'm saying that approach any of this stuff, because anything could be a genie in the bottle effect, whether it's a substance or whatever, but approach this with caution of what an adept does, that it never loses. Like if you're operating a saw, you don't look away from the saw often, because it could cost you a few fingers. So this is how you have to treat sharp knowledge. Some people say, man, he's sharp. I like him. He talks about the right stuff. But that's sharp stuff. So you have to really, really work with it as a surgeon's tool, understanding that if you make a slip with this, it can make an incision into the reality that can leave you exposed. And so that's the necessary precaution. And I've often wrestled with myself about how much I'm going to tell people and what I'm not going to tell people. But from preventing my own bottleneck, I've had many instances where I had to give the information because the information itself was stronger than me, for better lack of words, meaning that revealing information to get people the relief behind what they were experiencing in this reality has become far more of a working force inside of me than the prohibitions against giving out this information. But that is not true for many of the individuals that are walking in the occult world. Now, they know they're occult related. I know exactly what kind of magic they're practicing. I know what side of Venus they're actually from, but they masquerade in front of everyone now, especially they've started to come out more, as if they don't even know anything about that. And then what their exact agenda is, there's a lot of stuff. There's a whole show for that, but their exact agenda will be coming to a conclusion also, because there's nothing false that will survive. So anyone that wishes to survive, anyone that wishes to go into conscious immortality has to lose all of the mist. We must see you now for who you are so that you can see yourself. Because that's the other thing. I'm always free with talking about what I've been through and what I've experienced and what I'm doing, etc., because I must get back from the people the result of what I am. So as long as I am telling the truth, then I know what people are giving back to me is the truth. So this is how we keep utilizing the organic tools, each other, in order to keep sharpening ourselves. And organic tools are the best to use because they're specific to the type of cut that you need your crystal to be. So, 24 more minutes. Let's start taking some of these calls that have called in. We got a caller coming in from area code 336. Caller, you're on Esoteric Radio now.
Honest. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. I just want to say it's a pleasure to finally get the chance to talk to you. And I have two questions. First, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Asim Jr., also known as Mo Dollars on the Resistance. My two questions, one is a personal question, and the other one is a general question. I'll start with the personal question. I have trouble sometimes communicating with my loved ones. And I think it's because, well, I know it's because I'm on a high vibration, and a lot of times they feel like I'm on a higher level when I'm communicating with them, trying to explain, because I know I'm a bridge builder, and, just trying to enlighten. And sometimes they feel like they're on a lower level and I'm on a higher level, and I'm not trying to create that, but I just want to know if there's a better way or if you have any suggestions on how to, communicate some of these things.
Sure. I mean, I'm going to answer that, and I'm going to let Crystal give us her standpoint on that. But really, more than anything, you have to make more tools. You have to be able to plug into them properly. So what happens to us is that when we get into these higher states of consciousness, we do have a hard time relating to everyone or getting them to relate to us. So what we're then responsible for doing is actually going and utilizing another form of communication. So let's take, for instance, yesterday day before yesterday, I was in some arts and crafts, meaning that we finally sat down and actually did some stuff with the glue gun, and I wanted to make a little bit of art for the house. And I was using crystals. And the first thing I noticed is I wasn't just going to be able to glue a bunch of crystals to the piece of paper. There was very small crystals that I had, and I realized I was going to have to glue each and every single one of these little crystals into the designs that I wanted to create. So this meant that it was going to take more time. So I noticed that we are really, because we are moving so fast, we really want to translate the information to people that really fast. So we want to talk to them and try to compress it within the knowledge that we actually know and then hope they get it. When the reality is that it's not going to happen. You got to go into the room, put a nice video together, use the stuff that you know they like to do, meaning you got to really, really put some effort into it to know, what they watch, how to put it together, then you just give it to them, and then it's a courtesy because now they also can package it up and give it to, it's already packaged up, they can give it to others that are on their same frequency and wavelength. So, again, the responsibility still falls back on the teacher, failing to use the proper plugins or tools in order to help those that are adjacent to them. And this is what I've learned to be the most effective when getting the message across, even on my level, is that I just start really, really taking more time out if I want to go into certain frequencies. But this is also what it talks about in regards to viruses and diseases. In order to remove them, you must basically get on that same frequency and then eradicate it by oscillation. This is William Wright. So this means at a certain point, if you're this individual, you got the wand of Hermes running around or whatever, and you're trying to touch individuals into higher states of consciousness, you're going to have to really, really utilize the tools that are applicable for the reality that they're experiencing based on the framework. So the framework is actually the English language, which is a composition of many of the ancient languages put together. So that's how you can make it all connect for them. You use visual things, like I said, stuff that they're familiar with, and then you put it together back to that for them in another format.
That helps a lot. Thank you. I was shaking my head the whole time like, I get it. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
No doubt. So you said you had one more question?
Yeah, the general question was, I know that we are affected by the solar and lunar cycles as well as the planets, and I was just wondering, how much do we as a collective affect the cosmos?
There's really no separation. The reality is that it's a ping-ponging effect. It's the same thing I talked about when you're keeping balance is not standing in the center of something. It's running back and forth fast enough so that way basically the slide never tilts. So the slide itself never tilts. Very similar to a teeter-totter, like the thing that one person sits on one side, another person sits on another, and they keep bouncing each other through the balance. Now imagine yourself standing in the middle of a teeter-totter, and then you run to the left and you run to the right, but you can do that so fast to each edge that the teeter-totter would never tilt. Balance is being in motion. So I'm sure that gives you some insight on exactly how that works.
Definitely does. Thank you.
No doubt. All right, so what we're going to do, if you don't have anything else, sir, I do appreciate you calling in, and also for definitely spreading the knowledge to everyone, because asking those questions definitely gets out more information to everyone. We're going to go ahead and take the next caller, the caller calling in from the area code 510. You are on Esoteric Radio. Okay, Maybe that caller is not aware that we've actually opened the line, so what we're going to do is we're going to come back to that caller in area code 510. We're going to go to the caller in area code 614. Caller, you are on Esoteric Radio.
Peace up, Sevan.
Oldest, how are you?
Peace, this is Manifest. How you doing, brother?
Oh, man, I'm doing exceptionally well, man. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, I enjoyed the show, brother. I enjoyed the show. You hit on a lot of key topics, and one thing that specifically stuck out with me that came out of my studies was you spoke upon the 100 monkey theory, and I am pretty much familiar with that. And the question for that is, I have two questions. My question for that is, so say one is higher vibration and has gained such esoteric knowledge and overstanding of the whole universe and cosmos and everything within it, would that in turn affect the general populace of the world and all people on the planet? Will we slowly come into the evolution as a people, or do we all on multiple levels need to engage in that same thought process as that one person or persons?
Both. Because what's happening is even one is internal and the other one's external. But what we have to do also is that many of these anchor points, such as the individuals that are in the reality, and it's happening to them, like even Scorsese, Mr. Goodfellas, is making a conscious film right now. So what happens is even if these guys got another plan and they're up to something, it doesn't stop what's happening to consciousness. So what happens with these kind of ripple effects when the larger individuals in the reality start sending those ripple effects is it starts to also ping pong off the ripple effect that you're sending. So basically what we're living is we're living in chaos. This is the funny part about the whole thing. When you really understand this from a whole nother level, just when you get outside of it, you realize that there is life inside of chaos. And we are it. And if you didn't see chaos going on around you, maybe you need to look again. If you go a little bit out there across the ocean, especially into the east, it's chaos. So what it tells you is that there's a big time fertilization process that always takes place with planetary systems such as the ones that we're living in. It's now time for us to basically fess up to the situation and start living. Meaning that instead of always complaining about how the situation is not working out and what may happen wrong and et cetera, get into it and actually start to see where your place is in it, because then you'll start to realize that it is you. Like, it becomes an entirely different thing, but of course it comes in levels. Like, I'm not going to lie, I have already reached a level where basically, because I always put words to what was going on, but in so many words, the words was, however much you can take is how much we have. Meaning that there's no limitations here. The limitations is with you. And we're talking about real energy coursing through the body. We're not talking about just like a subconscious conversation with another deeper part of your more intelligent self. We're talking about the energy is getting to the point where all I'm seeing is white, and I hear this high pitch sound, and the body is just going nuts. Like, and you're seeing these waves and fields. So the reality is with this level, and you can see how all of this was supposed to work in conjunction, where this is the time where we reach that point. Like, that kind of power and energy starts with certain individuals. Like, when I went into that state, I already sent a ripple effect into the reality. So let's get that straight. This is not something that is being yet to be done. This is something that I already did and then sent a ripple effect into the reality. Now, that ripple effect then touches the individuals that have connected to my biorhythm or wavelength at a certain point. This is why that's why I was saying before that all this stuff is living inside of us. Madonna is living inside of us. It's because she's already inside of our consciousness. So it's then going to be who you think Madonna is. And this is why even the term Yeshua or Jesus is living inside of people's consciousness. It's living inside of everyone's consciousness at this point. Everyone knows who Jesus is, but it's all about who we think Jesus is. And this is why there's a twofold manifest way to this entire thing. This flip coin Janus Gemini situation that we've been dealing with in this age of Aquarius, which is the age of Set, who is Satan himself, and has played the heavy role in this current that has been coming through in this mansion that we've been living in, and we are now about to not just see another mansion, we're actually coming to the completion of the entire thing so we can pull back off of it and then fully realize what it is. But it will be at that point that when we pull back off of it, we will realize what it is. But that's always been something that's able to be done now. Remember, this is where spiritual knowledge this is what spiritual knowledge has really always told us is when you're ready to get into these higher states of consciousness, it's always available for you then. What the religion, such as Christianity and even now the new Mayan religion, has been saying is it's going to happen in 2012. It's going to happen when Jesus comes back. It's going to happen, and then they have a particular timeline. But in the Adept books, it says it happens anytime you're ready to cross the manifold and meet your Maker. Now, when we say our Maker, we think that our Maker is a man.
Right.
At all with what actually happened when we came into this planet. It doesn't mean that we're not somehow connected to the masculine force and the current. It just means you have to be very specific when you're talking about doing such things. So when you say you're going to meet your Maker, you have to understand what your trajectory is going to be, or else you're going to go and meet something that's not your Maker and then confuse it for your Maker and then suffer the ripple effect that ensues behind that. And then suffer from. So then the surgeon's got to come in after that. Remember, we can't leave these people that are suffering from their own psychosis. We have to go back in and deprogram all of the situations that occurred and actually get them back to the last point, like a restore on a computer, get them back to the last point that everything was okay before they went into the wrong section of their own spiral.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right. Most definitely. I'm feeling that, brother. I'm feeling that. That's beautiful. That's so eloquently put. I mean, thank you for that. And another thing is I heard you mention about the souls going into the water, and what that alluded to, I saw John Carter, and that movie is so deep. You've been speaking about, leveling up and gaming up and going into the movies and the video games and being able to decipher the esoteric meanings and allegories within these stories. And if I remember, they mentioned something about the water being, the soul energy for Earth, and that's where mostly all the souls congregate because there was no water on Mars.
In salt water too, which is conductive.
Okay.
It's not even just regular water. Like most of the water in the world is actually salt water, so it shows it has a mineral base to it, so it's definitely alive. And then if you look at it, one of the biggest games out right now is Battlefield 3. Everyone's running across the battlefield. But what happens is that who made the game? Digital Illusions. What is a digital illusion? The digital version of the Illuminati. And who made the company? EA Games. Who is EA? Aya, Saturn from the Sumerian text. He says challenge everything. You see, so these people, they got an entire generation of millions of individuals and beings that have been indoctrinated under a certain system that they refuse to understand or understand. They haven't even understood it yet. So then there's these other beings, such as myself, that already know how to neutralize this thing. It's just all about the right time. What's happening here, just like you went through several different transformations and certain information reaches you at a certain point, it's already a certain matter of time and we're ready to move. Who? Those individuals that are of a much more expansive consciousness and continuously are limited by this earth because we're actually inside of it. But this is where we were seated, meaning that there is an experience. Just like when you go into a prison, there's guys there that committed different types of crimes. Not everyone did the same kind of crime, and you got different kind of people there, is what I'm saying. So just because you're a high elven king from the magical system of light, whatever title these people are giving to themselves these days, you're still on earth. So then you have to understand how Ma, who's See, the and the Ma is the actual reverse. So it shows you when you bring Ma externally, wow, she's material girl. It's very dangerous. Like that entity itself is eradicating and destroying men, but taking them along on the trip. Hell hath nothing like a woman scorned, as they say. The woman gets very calculated. And I believe this is another stage of one of the 7 spectrums of light. But on the shadow side, if you look at the Black Widow, which has 8 legs, 8-legged entities do come from Venus also. If you see the hourglass on the stomach, the hourglass is, of course, the symbol of Orion, which is in that hourglass shape. The fallen ones, as they call them, fell into the sphere because it's a spiral. So they basically spiraled into the sphere using Phi, because the Phi relationship came from Venus, who was their mother. And that's why I keep saying it's Va. You have to be able to Va or He. He means 5 in Hebrew, and it's also the symbol of the pentagram, which is also the symbol of woman. It's the womb, unmanifest into manifest, the twin gate. So when I'm talking about this kind of stuff, I think that what happens is it gets recorded, and people start to write it down somewhere. They take it as their own. That's the first thing that happens. Generally, they start to tout this stuff, and then it starts to connect and put the pieces that are missing back together in the reality that's now allowing the reality to fire off, to jump off. And then once it happens, because it's still going to happen on an auric level first, it's going to happen on the etheric level first, then we will feel the subsequent response to that if we're not connected. If we are connected, we feel it all the time. What I feel is every time the moon, especially now these days for the last year and a half, when the moon gets stronger and stronger, my energy builds higher and higher, and my kinetics, I can even feel magnet in my teeth, like I can taste metal. My metallic structure seems to become more receptive. So I started thinking, what if much of all this metal that they keep introducing into the body, which was introduced to kill the human, many have actually evolved from it, just as the cockroach would evolve from the pesticide that was used on it, and the babies would come out immune to the pesticide, and even the pesticide would actually strengthen them. That's actually what happened. So what if all of these elements that have been known as poisons to the previous species actually became the evolution conjunction within the current species, which is what they call a mutation, which begins with mu. So obviously, we understand the mutations had already taken place a long time ago. That is the zodiac wheel in itself. Now we have reached conscious sentience level, which is a certain level that's demarked from after we leave extinction. I guess it would be extinction once we leave it, but once we leave instinct, we go into sentience, and then sentience, the game begins. You see what I mean? In instinct, which means now you're just basically like a bee. Everyone's the same size. We all have the same equipment. We all have the same vibration frequency, and we're going to get the honey for the queen. You left bee stage and went into who screwed the queen? Where's my life at? And then we lived in that for a while to return it back to, okay, well, maybe there's something that the queen does have that I actually need. I think I'm going to have to end up entering the court again, meaning I'm going to have to end up entering into the ancient areas where my energy originally came from. Because we keep looking at these individuals as separate than us. You see, like the queen, you're the queen, you're the king, you're all the pieces on the chessboard. As long as you can keep them close, they don't become dangerous. The further they get away from you becomes dangerous because you're missing it. So thus you feel like you need to find something. And this is we talked about in that post. What happens is a lot of people that are very external people feel like they need to go and find something, while internal people are always exclaiming on what they've discovered just recently, maybe even just last night. So just say the introvert is the next component also of causing a major explosion of intelligence into this reality. This means the individuals that have already pulled away from the cycle and the structure and the system because they've seen how instantaneously ignorant it really gets at times, and then have been working in entirely different areas impeded, meaning with no impediment, without being impeded. They've taken the high-powered microscopes that you can get off of Amazon for now $400. They've capitalized off of the quad-core, 8-core processors that you can now buy from Apple or buy from any chip house and put your own thing together. And they've connected something, basically their intelligence, their imagination. Because what happens is I notice out of all of this, when getting into the state of the third eye, it waits on a command. And generally the body likes to jump in first, and it starts to command with its fears. And then the field basically starts to manifest the body field. What I'm saying is that you have many things just waiting on you to give it a command. Right now it's running idle, and that's what we were talking about the dolphin. The dolphin doesn't stop. It knows and is conscious of every single breath that it takes. It cannot not think about its next breath, or it will die. So it doesn't really sleep on the same level that we sleep. And so, but these are more advanced things. There's more dolphins out here in the water of Costa Rica than I believe there's people on land. It's just there are kingdoms that have regions that we have never, in this particular sector of our time limit, been able to build a bridge into to fully understand. But it appears that that's happening now. I don't know if that somehow connects with Einstein's Rosen Bridge, or what, but there is becoming a bridge and a connection to frequencies that were normally very far away. Then, once we all connect, that's when I guess we all start to dock. We all start to really, really see, who and what everything is, the big mystery. It sounds to me like a big celebration. It sounds like to me the time where you actually get a chance to finally realize what you thought was true, but it was just nothing really allowing you to be able to know that was 100% true. But there is something. It's the third eye. And the third eye is one of those things where it's either on or it's not. And that's something that we should not play with ourselves about. It's not lucid dreaming. You can see things physically in the reality with the third eye. But the ability to be able to harness such a powerful tool is dependent upon the person. And so that means a person has to establish a relationship with Kundalini, which is Earth. Earth has 7 different ways of being at times, and then one major way of being, meaning Earth is a feminine entity. You have to understand. This is why men are like trapped here until they understand a woman. Don't they always say, the only thing I can't understand is a woman? Well, you're right. Failed. So what's going to happen is you're going to be here for a long time. Some of the ferns that live here, which came here before the dinosaurs, will make sure you don't go because they have a certain pheromone that you can't even get away from. It's a feminine thing. It's like something that pulls us in. So unless something seems to release you from that, so you become released from your passions, so that you can start working on the level where your energy, you can understand how to govern your energy. And here's the other thing. I'll talk about this. We've got 2 more minutes left in the conversation. It's very important to understand what happened with many of the feminine wombs or the feminine manifestation of the creative energy. Because of the connection, they are even closer to the energy. Their anger sprays out and can kill plants, animals, kids, the whole 9. So if man was in a position, of course, where he was abusing a woman, and then she, even sulking in the house and upset at him about something, starts to destroy everything around and creates a negative field. Now, of course, we can say that that's the man's fault, or we can say it's the woman's fault, but the reality is we have to fix these kind of situations, and we fix them by knowing that that's what we're doing. So only 4 minutes left in the call. Brother, I do appreciate you calling in. Definitely was a good building session on just, sparking off those right questions in order to get the real information out, because you can see it's really limitless. And what's back on us is how much we're willing to venture with it. And like I said, we have to be ready for new, but not afraid of it, which is, the instinct that we have to lose. So I'm going to will take us out of here. I know I was going to bring her in at a certain point, but I just started getting on that flow. We have about 90 seconds in the call. Definitely wholeness.
Hello. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I've just kind of been listening to everything you were going through there and doing other things on the side here. I've been kind of chatting in the chat box with some people and Mr. Spirit Matter as well. He was wondering if you had touched on any specific tips for activation, but I kind of said, the whole conversation has kind of been one big tip for activation. So there's a lot of really good information that's come across today, really crystal clear, like I said. And, I've just been talking to people in the chat box. They're just asking me about, Costa Rica, how many people are there as of right now. And I said that, basically we've had some people come and visit you, but they haven't, stayed for any extra long length of time other than, of course, Luis and Pablo. But that's changing. We're ready to accept people as of right now.
Yeah, actually, what we're ready to do is give people the proper instructions on, what is the layout out here, like how much it does cost to live. We do have it at a minimal in regards to places that we've already identified that are here out by the beach and that are not bad, but don't cost like an arm and a leg and get you immersed into nature so you can, clean things up. Seeing the green really helps. And, again, there's only like 12 seconds in the call, so of course we can more on the we could talk more about that. Once again, I want to say thanks to everyone. Of course, next week we'll be delivering much, much more wholeness and balance.
Wholeness and balance.